As you may have noticed lately, I have been referring to Jehovah as an eyeball. I commented on this person's post that reads like this. Well, it's official. I've lost every single person I've ever loved, including my 3 beloved sons. This is what the Jehovah's Witnesses do for you and your family for generations, creating generational trauma that will last till the end of time. I have never felt so alone, betrayed, and abandoned. I pray for a better world, better people, and to find my soul and family. And I can't read the rest of it because it's blocked out by all the wording. So I commented with this picture, and she proceeds to call me rude. Let me tell you what's rude. What's rude is your God that you're defending in the comments, named Jehovah, has allowed this generational curse to continue for over 140 years, just in the Jehovah's Witness religion alone. That's rude. What else is rude is that this Jehovah has done nothing for nobody ever in the history of mankind. Hundreds of thousands, possibly millions of children that were physically and sexually abused by Jehovah's Witnesses. And in most cases, it was their own parents that were doing it to them. And this God Jehovah still has done nothing for nobody. So this video is all about me disproving this word. This J word is not a God. This is why he is non-existent. Here we go. So I decided to pick this Jeffrey Jackson talk, February 10th, 2018. He has another talk about the divine name that I've already done a rebuttal to long ago. Here we go.
In addition to being clear and accurate, what should be the primary goal of any Bible translation?
Well, sir, you wouldn't know because you're not a scholar. You're not educated in this kind of thing. You don't know how to do this kind of thing. You are all pretending down there at the Watchtower Society that you actually know what you're doing when you don't.
The answer is found in the theme of our program this month. Father, glorify your name. It's based on Jesus' words recorded at John 12 and verse 28. Let's start by examining the context of those words. Father, glorify your name. Then a voice came out of heaven. I have glorified it and will glorify it again.
He is withholding context from you. Let's look at John 17:11. Let's pin every translation on earth against the Watchtower's new worst translation. The New Living Translation says, Holy Father, you have given me your name. Now protect them by the power of your name. The rest of them say, the name you gave me, the name you gave me, the name you gave me. He's not talking about a word that is only 500 years old called Jehovah. This also translates the same way in the New World Order translation of the scriptures by the Watchtower Society.
But this month, we will consider another aspect of this subject that is far more controversial, namely, should the divine name appear in the Christian Greek scriptures?
The answer is no, absolutely not. So by saying it's highly controversial and asking should it appear in the New Testament, you're admitting that it's the wrong thing to do because that J word has never, ever been found in the New Testament.
Or what is commonly called the New Testament. Many scholars who agree with us that the divine name should appear in the Hebrew scriptures disagree with our use of the same name in the New Testament.
Scholars have ripped the Watchtower for adding that medieval name to the New Testament and exchanging the word Jehovah for Jesus when Jesus is the Savior of both Jew and Gentile now, not Jehovah. Jehovah is nothing. It's just a word. So let's take a look at what scholars have actually said. Scholarly reception, I have a hard time saying that word, of the Jehovah's Witnesses New World Translation is deeply divided with strong praises and sharp criticisms from different academic perspectives. So I'm going to skip the critics because I know there's plenty of critics of the New Worst Translation. Let's go to the people that are supporting this New Testament work, New World Translation. Edgar J. Goodspeed, praising the New Worst Translation. He is a Freemason. Thomas Nelson Winter, also a Freemason. Then you got this guy down here, Jason Bedun, also a Freemason.
So what prompted the translators of the New World Translation to restore the divine name 237 times in the Christian Greek scriptures?
Well, I can answer that because you said what prompted the translators that work at the Watchtower as if they are trained and educated on how to do this. You're looking at a couple of guys that most likely have never even graduated high school. They have zero training and nobody there at the Watchtower knows how to train them to actually translate things properly. And not only that, you already know what you're going to put and where you're going to put it. You already know that you're going to tuck in that Jehovah word wherever you see fit and make excuses to do it.
The answer to that question involves some fascinating events that seem to be too amazing to be just coincidence. It also requires us to do some detective work. Sound intriguing? It is. So let's start our journey together. First of all, imagine you are back in the late 1940s, the time when the New World Bible Translation Committee was translating the book of Matthew.
New World Bible Translation Committee. The name may sound fancy, but it's not a recognized translation committee. It's not recognized by universities or actual scholars. You guys literally have no idea what you're doing, and still to this day, you have no idea what you're doing.
As they started the project, no doubt they realized that Matthew's account contains many quotations from the Hebrew Scriptures. Many of these contain the Tetragrammaton.
That's a lie. The Tetragrammaton never, ever, ever appeared in the New Testament, not in any of the codexes ever. It was always Lord or God. It was never, ever the Tetragrammaton, ever. That was a lie.
That is the divine name in Hebrew letters in the original text.
There's nothing divine about it.
For example, let's consider Matthew 22, verse 44. This verse records Jesus quoting the words of Psalm 110, verse 1. Jehovah said to my Lord, sit at my right hand.
Look at the LXX Septuagint, which is the oldest translation from Hebrew to Greek that we have. There is no Tetragrammaton anywhere, but I'm about to show you where it came from.
But did Jesus use the divine name when making this quote?
Never, not one single time did Jesus ever say Jehovah or even Yahweh or any of the other words that people have made up. Never. If it was so important, Jesus would have brought it up multiple times and said, hey, listen, this is very important for everybody to hear. I need everybody to remember this word, Yahweh, Jehovah, whatever it is you want to call it, because it's very important to your salvation that you know this word. But he never, ever did. There is one name under heaven in which a man can be saved, and that is Jesus.
Or did he substitute the divine name with an equivalent such as Lord? Well, the brothers would have realized that many editions of the King James Version did something very interesting in Matthew 22:44.
Okay, so you were translating from the King James Version. That makes zero sense at all, because even the King James Version is taken from Masoretic texts, which were written and edited by Cabalists over a long period of time. So you're translating a translation of a translation of a translation of a translation of a translation instead of trying to go right to the source. You can't go right to the source. Museums just wouldn't let you touch it because you guys are not scholars. You are not trained in this. You have no education, no diplomas, no degrees in this. This is why none of the museums would let you touch any of the original translations.
In that verse, the English word Lord is written in capital letters. This technique is used throughout the King James Version to indicate where the original Hebrew text uses the divine name. So using Lord in capital letters in this verse, in effect acknowledges that the name of God was originally in this quote.
Prove it. Prove that it is written in capital letters. It's written in capital letters in the King James Version, some of them, not all of them. But it's not written in capital letters in the Codex. I love how you're praising King James, because he's one of you. He's a Cabalist and a Mason just like the rest of you. He wrote a book about demonology and said, I'm writing this book to tell you how to fight against demons. But really, it's just like all of your Watchtower publications that actually teach people demonism, Satanism, spiritualism.
The implication is that Jesus used God's name when making this quote.
That is an absolute lie. He just lied right to your face. Or he's just really stupid. Jesus never ever said Yahweh.
However, in the years prior to the release of the New World Translation, many scholars argued that long before Jesus came to earth, the Jewish people had already removed the Tetragrammaton from the Greek translation of the Hebrew text, the Septuagint.
Who are these scholars? No, I don't know of any scholar that has ever said that, not one time. But I know of so-called scholars that have inserted the Tetragrammaton into the New Testament after the LXX Septuagint, which means 70, because 70 Jewish scholars translated the Old Testament from Hebrew into Greek, and 70 is a great number because they're all checking each other's work. You've got two people up there at the Watchtower Society trying to do the work of a degreed scholar. They have no idea what they're doing.
However, in the years prior to the release of the New World Translation, many scholars argued that long before Jesus came to earth, the Jewish people had already removed the Tetragrammaton from the Greek translation of the Hebrew text, the Septuagint.
That's a lie. Where is your proof of that? I can prove complete opposite of that. You're lying.
If true,
If true, he said, if true.
that would mean that copies of the holy writings used in Jesus' day would not have contained the divine name.
And they didn't. Never, ever Jehovah or Yahweh or any other combinations that were made up by Cabalists.
So what should the translation committee do?
I'm sure they don't know either because they're not educated in this area. Probably didn't even graduate high school.
Should they use the divine name in their translation or not?
Not.
This is where the story becomes intriguing. Around that time, some exciting discoveries were made that proved those scholars wrong.
I made a little exciting discovery of my own while doing this video.
One of these discoveries was documented by the brothers in the foreword of the 1950 edition of the New World Translation of the Christian Greek Scriptures. It involves some papyri, copies of the Septuagint, that dated back to around the time of Jesus. What did these papyri fragments reveal?
Well, they revealed something very big to me that I'm about to show everybody.
Let's find out in this documentary report.
In 1950, the New World Translation of the
See that Coca-Cola sign there? Coca-Cola was started by a Freemason.
Christian Greek Scriptures was released.
I have the extreme pleasure of releasing the New World Translation of
The baseball field that you see there, also designed by a Freemason. The whole design of the field is a square and compass. And you know what the distance from the pitcher's mound to home plate is? And I only know this because I used to pitch. 60 feet and 6 inches.
This translation was unique in that it restored the divine name, Jehovah, 237 times in the main text of the so-called New Testament.
And I can't believe at one time I actually believed this nonsense. Thank you, God, for waking me up. So they randomly just inserted that medieval word called Jehovah, only about 500 years old. The almighty creator of the universe has a 500-year-old name. All right, so let's talk about now why I keep referring to Jehovah as an eyeball. So this is called the Hangman's card. It's a tarot card. And as you can see there at the top left corner, you've got Jehovah's name in the satanic star. This is actually called a magic circle. This is a tarot card called Temperance. What's the big deal about this? On a satanic tarot card, there's your God's name in Hebrew. This is called the Lesser Key of Solomon, also known as a magic circle. There's the word Tetragrammaton. Here's another Lesser Key of Solomon, and there you have the word again, Tetragrammaton. Now this is something that Kabbalists and Freemasons would carry around with them to let everybody know that they had herpes. And there is your God's name right there, Jehovah. Why would you want anything to do with this name at all if it is used in Kabbalism, Freemason, Satanism? Why would you want to have anything to do with that?
But how could they do that, considering that for centuries, many Bibles did not use Jehovah's name? And why did the divine name need to be restored?
The only divine name that anybody on earth alive now should be concerned with is Jesus.
The oldest copies we have available do not use the divine name in the Christian Greek Scriptures.
Because it never existed, ever. It never existed until you guys came along and decided to praise Satan by putting in that name of false worship in the Christian Greek Scriptures. That way you have millions of Jehovah's Witnesses worldwide for over 125 years praising a demon instead of Jesus.
Do not use the divine name in the Christian Greek Scriptures. They use substitutes like God or Lord.
Very early on, the copyists of those original manuscripts, they simply replaced, they got in the practice of replacing God's name. We know that this it's not a translation because one is a name, the other one is a title. It's not even a synonym for Jehovah, for a name.
Since the Greek scriptures were an inspired addition to the sacred Hebrew scriptures, in fact, Jehovah's name, God's name, was used some 7,000 times in the Hebrew scriptures.
No, that's a lie! That's a lie! Look in the LXX Septuagint, that Tetragrammaton, the word Jehovah, Yahweh, it doesn't exist anywhere. Anywhere. That is such a lie.
The sudden disappearance in the Greek text is inconsistent.
There was no disappearance because it was never there in the first place, Mark.
Even though the New World Bible Translation Committee believed that Jehovah's name should appear in the text of the Christian Greek Scriptures, They also knew that at that time virtually all Bible scholars disagreed with that belief.
Yes, and these uneducated men have come along and said, we're smarter than you and we know more than you do, so we're going to go ahead and put in this demonic name to distract people from Jesus again.
Those scholars argued that by the time of Jesus, even the Greek translation of the Hebrew Scriptures, the Septuagint, no longer contained the divine name.
It's not that it no longer contained the divine name. It never had the divine name. Not the Hebrew Scriptures and not the New Testament. There was no name Jehovah ever.
So why would the writers of the New Testament use the divine name when their copies of the Holy Scriptures in Greek did not contain the Tetragrammaton?
Because it was never there.
This view was based on faulty information.
Oh, was it now? Please go on.
How so? Did the Septuagint still use the divine name in Jesus' time?
No. Both the word Tetragrammaton and Jehovah are both medieval words. Nobody in Bible times even ever heard of the Tetragrammaton. Ever.
Let's consider one piece of evidence that answers this question.
Something amazing happened in 1944. A theological journal published a picture of a Greek Septuagint fragment from the papyrus Fouad 266 collection. Now inside that fragment, there was the divine name. In the Greek text, you had the Tetragrammaton, not just once but throughout. Now this fragment was very old, dating back to the 1st century BCE. But the important point is, this was proof, clear proof, that the divine name was originally there.
I'm going to show clear proof that that word was never there, ever. Here we go. You have the LXX Septuagint that was started around 300 BC, before Christ. It was translated by 70 or 72 educated Jewish scholars over 200 years. Then you have Aquila of Sinope, Theodotion, and Symmachus that decided, well, we don't like the way this looks, so we're going to rewrite it. And by the way, all three of these men that are written in red here that decided to rewrite the Septuagint by themselves are all deniers of Jesus, staunch deniers of Christ. So by this time, the LXX Septuagint has already been around for almost 300 years, and nobody had any problems with it until these Kabbalic, satanic Jews came along, Aquila of Sinope, Theodotion, and Symmachus. They are the ones, those Kabbalic Jews that absolutely hate Jesus, they are the ones that added the Tetragrammaton in there. This was pre-planned well in advance.
2 Jehovah's Witnesses were asked to obtain photographs of these fragments, which were located in Cairo, Egypt.
They said 2 of these Jehovah's Witnesses were asked to obtain photographs, as if like museums were calling them and asking them, please go out there and get photographs of this fragment. They were asked by the Watchtower Society to go out there and take pictures of those. That's it. When I Googled who made the discovery of Fouad 266, the Watchtower did this in such a clever way, the AI overview said this: the discovery of the Fouad 266 papyrus fragments is attributed to a pair of missionaries from the Watchtower Bible and Tract Society in 1948 in Fayum, Egypt, though a single fragment was published by W.G. Waddell in 1944 from the same find. Who is W.G. Waddell? There's our man right there, William Waddell, Master Mason, Lodge St. John, about this fragment that the Jehovah's Witnesses just happened to have in their library.
New World Translation Committee were very interested in this because they started translating the Greek scriptures in 1947.
Okay, this next part I cannot take credit for. This credit goes to Ben Born Again on YouTube. I was watching one of his videos and he mentioned this and I was like, oh, that's right. I forgot about that. So 1947, what happened in 1947? Well, you have Israel becoming a state with the help of the Rothschilds.
But the peculiar thing was that in 1947 they were found when the State of Israel was created. The State of Israel was created, and boom, these Dead Sea Scrolls were found right there in the Qumran caves. And just happened, some shepherd boy just happened to come by and throw a stone in there, and oops, well, we got to look in here. Nobody ever, didn't dawn to anybody to look at it before. So now this explains to me what the whole hoopla was over the Dead Sea Scrolls. It wasn't the content of the scrolls or the information. I think it was that somebody, an intelligent scholar, would be able to detect that it was written in the block Hebrew script and not in the old script that should have been written in, and would have called a fraud on it. So they took their time in releasing it. Another peculiarity with biblical archaeology is all of a sudden you're finding these collections that were found in Israel.
Israel, they are such whores. Anyways, the Freemasons were already aware that all this was going to go down. This has been pre-planned by the fallen angels for a long time. So as soon as Israel becomes a state, suddenly these clay jars that have these Dead Sea Scrolls in them, ta-da! Hey, look, we found some old scrolls. Maybe we should look at them. And there you have the Tetragrammaton in the Dead Sea Scrolls. All of it false, all of it worthless. Burn it.
New World Translation Committee were very interested in this.
Again, the New World Translation Committee, although it sounds like a very important name, is not recognized by any universities or scholars as a way of translating the Bible.
Because they started translating the Greek scriptures in 1947.
But the peculiar thing was that in 1947 they were found when the State of Israel was created.
So they sent two guys all the way to Cairo to take a picture of this fragment. And these guys probably never graduated high school. It is most likely they did not. This is why scholars laugh at the Watchtower. Okay, now let me show you what I found. The screenshot that is behind Jeffrey Jackson here on this television of this Fouad 266, and then the one that they're actually showing in this particular video. And I put them side by side. What I found is alarming. That those words in red down there, I did not make them red myself, and that to me does not say YHWH or even the word Jehovah. To me, that says Lord in Greek. You can clearly see that this was pasted on there when you mess with the contrast. Nothing else changes on that document except for that word. Isn't that something? I found something else very alarming. Now, I'm just pointing out some of the differences. There are so many differences, but in this chunk here where I put them side by side, you can clearly see that there are differences in these documents. We'll start with the A all the way to the right. The A on the left document has two round dots, and the A on the right document does not. This K also has round dots at the legs of the K. This document does not. The document on the right where it says TACKO, the A is straight, but the document on the left where it says TACKO, the A has bends to the letter. Next one, right here, TA, where is that round part? That round part on the right document is missing from the left document. You have an O on the left document, but on the right document, it's actually a Q with a stick underneath it. The T on the right document, the top part of the T on the right document has hanging edges, whereas the T on the left document does not. Not to mention the fact that there are two letters in between where it says OCO. There is no Y on the right document. There is no E. There's no Y or E that is on the right document on the left document. They're missing completely. This where it says VTOCAN, the left document has a bizarre looking V, whereas the right document does not. This where it says, it should say on the right document KOCK, but on the left document, I don't know what that says. It looks like a number 2 OCK. So what you're looking at here are fraudulized documents. That's what you're seeing right before your very eyes. The Watchtower has fraudulized the documents. And not only that, that word that they have in red there, that is supposed to be the Tetragrammaton when it's not, is much smaller than all the other words. They pasted that little piece of papyrus on there. That's what they did. I would like to say that I'm surprised or shocked, but I'm not. The Watchtower Society is fraudulent in everything that they do. Everything.
What amazes me about this is the timing. When our brothers, this New World Translation Committee, did their research before even translating, suddenly something that was unknown until essentially 1944 came to light that confirms that the eternal name of God.
No, it does not confirm nothing. That is not true. That is a lie. That's all you guys do is lie.
It has to be revealed. It cannot no longer be hidden. It should be shown to everyone who wants to worship Jehovah.
So says Satan.
This careful preservation supports what Jesus said in prayer.
Careful preservation by the Cabalists.
At John 17:26, when he said to his Father, I have made your name known and will make it known.
I'm so glad you brought up John 17:26. Yes, Jesus said, I have made your name known. But remember this, Jesus took credit for nothing. Do you remember when one of the apostles called him a good teacher and then Jesus says, who is good? Only God is good. I'm going to show you the scripture that you will never hear the Watchtower read to their people, ever. Let's take a look at the latter half of John 17 verses 11, and this is what it says in the JW Bible as well. Holy Father, protect them by the power of your name. The name you gave me. The name you gave me. And that name is Jesus, not an eyeball. And every one of these translations say the same thing. The name you gave me.
As Jehovah's Witnesses, we are proud to be a people for his name.
You're a people for an eyeball.
Knowing his name is essential to know Jehovah himself.
If you're a Cabalist, I guess, or a Freemason.
And the fact that Jehovah has provided this arrangement through his people, it makes it very clear that he was gathering a people for his name.
Again, the only name that anybody on earth that wants to be saved should be concerned with is Jesus.
This is why this Bible translation is so beautiful, because...
No, not beautiful. It's a hideous slander of our true God.
But he is Jehovah, our God. He extends his hands to us and says, well...
He doesn't have hands, he's an eyeball.
What an amazing find! They found proof that the divine name in Hebrew letters was included in the text of the Septuagint that would have been available in Jesus' day.
That is such a lie. And once again, here's the chart. The LXX Septuagint that was translated by 70 or 72 Jewish scholars, which was the correct translation of the Hebrew scriptures, would have been the one that Jesus would have saw when he was here. Because by the time these three demons here retranslated the Septuagint to make it contain the Tetragrammaton, Jesus had already gave his life for us. Jesus was gone. Jesus would have never have seen these mistranslations.
And just at the right time, the time when the members of the translation committee were making the decision as to whether they should use the name Jehovah in their translation of the Christian Greek scriptures.
As if. You guys already knew you were going to stick that stupid name in there anyway.
We are so happy that the brothers were able to find this information, because these fragments were not released for general publication until much later, in 1971.
That's when the governing body was formed too, which also is a Masonic term, governing body. That's weird. What a coincidence, I guess.
Do you remember what other important material was discovered starting in 1947?
1947, the year of the Masons.
It was the Dead Sea Scrolls.
Yeah, they're dead all right.
Many of these scrolls were dated to around the time when Jesus was on earth.
Oddly enough, when the Jewish scholars were translating the Hebrew scriptures into Greek, which would become the LXX Septuagint, the Kabbalists were hard at work as well, creating these Dead Sea Scrolls, so they could insert that stupid Tetragrammaton.
And what did these scrolls contain over and over again? You guessed it, the Tetragrammaton.
The Tetragrammaton didn't appear until like 500 years ago. This is how well planned this was. He's lying right to your faces.
The Tetragrammaton, the divine name.
All right, Jehovah's Witnesses, here is your divine name on a satanic star. You can see the words right there, Tetragrammaton. Here is your divine name on what is called a magic circle. And again, here is your divine name on a tarot card. This religion and all other religions are heavily Kabbalistic, period.
Isn't it interesting that these discoveries were made around the time that our brothers were translating the New World Translation? Is this just coincidence?
It's just a coincidence that in the year of the Masons, 1947, and Israel becomes a state, that they just happen to find these Dead Sea Scrolls that were written on sheepskin for some reason? No, I don't think it's a coincidence at all, sir.
Or do you see Jehovah's hand in this?
Jehovah doesn't have hands.
What has happened in the years since that time? It's important to note that the divine name is consistently used in fragments of the Septuagint that date from the 1st century BCE and the 1st century CE.
Once again, here's the chart. The Septuagint rewrites, when it didn't need to be rewritten, didn't start till 130 of our Common Era. So it was after Jesus' death. So only those three rewrites of the LXX Septuagint, which means 70, because it was 70 to 72 Jewish scholars that translated the Hebrew scriptures, only those three written by those Kabbalic, Jesus-hating Jews contain the Tetragrammaton. Just those three. And those three editions did not appear before Christ, sir.
This has led some scholars to acknowledge the possibility that Jesus and his disciples used the divine name when making these quotations.
Name one.
So what about the other 2/3 of occurrences? Well, this brings us to the part of our program that involves some detective work. Imagine that you are a detective and you catch an art thief who has stolen over 200 original pieces of art from various museums and art galleries. This thief not only stole each piece of art, but he also substituted it with a copy.
Why don't we use the Watchtower, for example, for this? Because they stole hundreds of thousands of lives through their blood doctrine. Hundreds of thousands of children died by not taking blood transfusions. All of them sacrificed in the name of this triune God right here.
In both the Scottish and York Rite, you discover that Masons are on a journey seeking to find the lost name of God. Part of their religion, they say, is that the sacred name of God has been lost. And they tell this whole story of the building of Solomon's temple and the architect, Hiram Abiff, who, in building the temple, lost the sacred name of God. And so they say that Masons are on this search to recover the lost name of God. And finally, when you get to the Royal Arch degree, the Mason is finally told what the secret name of God is that only Masons can know. And they pride themselves that they alone are the custodians of the secret name of God. And that name can only be whispered among Masons by 3 Masons, each saying a syllable. The name is Jobulon. It is a combination of 3 words, Jehovah, Baal, and Osiris, the Egyptian sun god.
Yah, Bel, On. Yah, Bel, On. Yah.
And what a Mason is worshiping in the Masonic Lodge is a 3-headed god made up of Jehovah, Baal, and Osiris, the Egyptian sun god, represented by the phallic symbol, the sexual worship in Egypt. And they have combined this into a 3-headed monster and say that is the Masonic god they worship.
So you need to start an investigation and follow the clues. First of all, you need to find out where each painting was located originally. Once you have verified that fakes are hanging in those locations...
Your whole translation of the entire Bible is a fake. It's a fraud, just like this religion.
In a similar way, we have solid evidence that a crime was committed in the 2nd and 3rd century CE. Apostate Christians removed the divine name from manuscripts of the Bible.
No, they didn't. Why do we always have to be apostate Christians? Why is everybody else apostates except for you guys? Why? You're the only people on earth that go around saying, apostate Christians, apostate Christians. Nobody else does that but you.
Apostate Christians removed the divine name from manuscripts of the Bible and replaced it with Kyrios, the Greek word for Lord.
Because that was what was there originally. You have no idea what you're talking about, sir. You have no clue. You're reading what's on the screen, and everything you're saying is back-ass words.
So they are like the art thief in our illustration. They stole something valuable when they removed Jehovah's name from the Christian Greek scriptures.
This is so difficult to watch and to listen to. I cannot believe that this man has been given permission to lead millions of people on this subject in particular at that.
But we have a problem. There are no copies of the Christian Greek scriptures from the 1st century for us to examine. The earliest existing manuscripts that would have a bearing on this matter date from the late 2nd century onward, a time when we know that the crime had already been committed. Jehovah's name had already been removed.
It was never there in the first place. It's a 500-year-old word.
Basically, there are 5 clues that will help us to find out where the original artwork, that is Jehovah's name, needs to be returned to.
He's about to give you 5 excuses which no scholar in the world uses when they do a translation. Basically, they're going to put it wherever the F they want to put it, and there's nothing you can say or do about it.
The first clue is, as we've already mentioned, the easiest clue, where the title Lord appears in quotations from the Hebrew Scriptures that originally used the divine name.
Oh my God. There's no quotations in the original text. Not even in your Kabbalic translations, not even in the LXX Septuagint, not even in the original Hebrew scriptures. There's no quotations. I can't believe this. Let's say you went back in time to when the 70 or 72 Greek scholars were translating the Hebrew scriptures into Greek. Let's say you just walked up behind them and said, hey, put some quotations there. They look at you like, what is a quotation? They have no idea what a quotation is.
The second clue is where the Greek text contains a Hebrew idiom that would normally contain the divine name. For example, if someone says in English, he escaped by the skin of his, What word do you expect? Teeth, not eye.
It actually should be skin of his eye.
So whenever we find a Greek translation of a Hebrew idiom that uses the divine name,
it never said Jehovah, ever.
This is another clue that Jehovah's name should be there.
No, there was no Tetragrammaton. There was no Jehovah, not even Yahweh. In this photo here, where Jeffrey Jackson has these 4 letters written behind him on the wall, as Jehovah's Witnesses, we were led to believe that that was ancient Hebrew, and that's just a name that stood the test of time and so forth. I believed it myself. That is modern Hebrew. That is not even an ancient word at all. Those aren't even ancient letters. And furthermore, when Jesus was here on earth, he could speak Hebrew if he wanted to, but he was mostly speaking Greek and Aramaic. Rarely did he speak Hebrew. I'm sure maybe when he went to the temple to read from the scroll, that was most likely in Hebrew, but rarely in conversation did he speak Hebrew. Hebrew was it was a lost cause. Ever since the Jews were exiled to Babylon, Hebrew was gone. So this hoard out modern Hebrew right here is not very old at all.
The third clue is where the term Lord appears in the context surrounding a quotation that is originally attributed to Jehovah.
Again, there's no quotations in the original script. None. There's not even paragraph numbers. It just writes on and on. That's all. There's no quotations.
An example of this is Matthew 1:22. All of this actually came about to fulfill what was spoken by Jehovah through his prophet, saying. The quotation that immediately follows at Matthew 1 verse 23 is taken from Isaiah 7 verse 14. This is a prophetic message spoken by Jehovah through Isaiah.
If you can find an untouched copy of the LXX Septuagint, you will find that it does not say that in Isaiah anywhere. There is no Tetragrammaton in the Old Testament, even in the original Hebrew language. There is no Tetragrammaton, there's no Yahweh, there's no Jehovah. So Jeffrey, I'm going to show you why you need to have educated people doing this kind of work, because I'm going to show you where you guys messed up. So let's take a look at Psalm 110 in your own Bible. It says, jworg declared to my Lord, sit at my right hand until I place your enemies as a stool for your feet. So you're going to assume that this jworg is talking to Jesus. But if you go down to verse 5, you guys missed this one. Boy, that's tough luck. Jehovah will be at your right hand. So you have Jehovah at the right hand of Jesus now. So you're admitting that Jesus is king here, because now you have Jesus as the Almighty and you have Jehovah sitting at his right hand. I'm sure you'll fix that in your next worst translation.
The fourth clue is when we see in the Greek text where there is no definite article before Kyrios, the Greek word for Lord.
Look at this crap. This is not a real thing. No definite article. I'm just going to skip to the next one where they have clue number 5 so you can easily see what nonsense this is. Clue number 5, avoiding ambiguity. Okay, fine, whatever. This is not a real thing. This is not a scholarly practice. They're basically just giving themselves permission to put this demonic name wherever the hell they want.
In this way, they were able to right the wrong.
No, you wronged the right is what you basically did.
That was committed by apostate Christians in the 2nd and 3rd centuries.
Oh, why do you keep calling people apostate Christians? You guys are the apostates. These are all blackmailed and extorted men just saying what they need to say to keep their asses out of prison. I hope you enjoyed this video, and like I said, Ben Born Again on YouTube, his video was a big help for me for that one part that I didn't even know. He has a lot of good in-depth content, and the reason I haven't posted any videos in the past few days is because I've been doing this non-stop, just grinding my nose into the books and trying to bring JW's real truth. I hope you enjoyed. Thanks for watching.